In the picture-perfect foothills of Washington's Cascades, where HOA signs promised community harmony, but delivered iron-fisted control, one woman decided an old man's family footbridge was an eyesore that had to go. She never imagined the water she claimed to protect would rise up and swallow everything she'd built on lies. Elias Hawthorne had lived on the same patch of evergreen lake shoreline since Truman was president. The footbridge his grandfather nailed together in 1940 wasn't just wooden bolts. It was the only dry path from his back porch to the public trail that looped the whole cove. 3 generations of Hawthornes had walked it to fish, visit neighbors, and watch the sun drop behind the pines. But to Victoria Langford, chair of the Shadow Lake Estates HOA, it was a code violation waiting for a clipboard. She rolled up his gravel drive that crisp October morning like she owned the county, 2 matching board members in identical Navy windbreakers trailing behind her. Victoria's smile could sell condos in a hurricane. "Mr. Hawthorne," she purred, extending the notice like a royal decree. The board voted unanimously. That unauthorized structure crosses HOA waters. Safety hazard, aesthetic violation, Section 7.2. Demolition crew arrives at dawn tomorrow. Elias took a slow sip of coffee, the steam curling around his weathered face. "Unauthorized? My grandfather recorded that easement with the county in '42. You've got the survey on file somewhere under all those fines you mail out for dandelions." Her lips tightened, but the smile stayed glued. "Old paper doesn't override current bylaws, Elias. We modernized the lakefront for everyone's benefit." One of her lackeys actually nodded like a bobblehead. Elias set his mug down with a soft clink. "Modernized. That's a polite word for tearing down what you can't control." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The lake behind him lay glassy and patient, the same way it had for 85 years. They left him the notice and drove off in formation, tires spitting gravel like they'd already won. The next morning the excavator showed up right on schedule. Elias sat on his porch in the same rocking chair his grandfather carved, coffee in hand, phone recording in his shirt pocket. Victoria stood 20 feet away, arms folded, directing the operator like a general. Metal jaws bit into the first railing with a crack that echoed across the water. Planks splintered. Bolts screamed. Every piece that hit the dump truck felt like a punch to the gut, but Elias never flinched. "Beautiful work," he called out when the last beam dropped. "You just turned 85 years of family history into kindling. Hope those new property values were worth it." Victoria adjusted her sunglasses. "Rules apply to everyone, Elias. Even you." She actually believed it when she said it. He raised his mug in a mock toast. "Funny how those rules never seem to apply to that fancy new pavilion you're building for your select members." She laughed, a short, brittle sound, and climbed back into her SUV. The convoy rolled out, leaving nothing but churned mud and the gap where the bridge used to be. Elias waited until the dust settled. Then he walked down to the water's edge, boots crunching over fresh wreckage. The lake looked calm, but he knew its temper. His grandfather had helped engineer the original flood control system back when the development was just blueprints and promises. One manual gate, hidden behind his property line on an easement nobody at the HOA ever bothered to read, still worked perfectly. Victoria and her board thought they controlled the water. They were about to learn they only rented it. Over the next week, Elias played the perfect defeated neighbor. He showed up at the monthly HOA meeting, nodded politely while Victoria bragged about the new wellness pavilion, opening soon, 20 luxury cabanas, private docks, all built 3 feet too low because aesthetic flow. He even complimented her on the fresh paint. Inside, his leather notebook filled with dates, photos, and copies of old county permits, showing every single one of those cabanas sat in the documented floodplain. Neighbors started dropping by after dark. Old Mrs. Delgado, whose dock they'd fined into oblivion. The Parkers who got cited for unapproved holiday lights 3 years running. They all had stories, and they all had evidence. Elias listened, scanned documents, and smiled the quiet smile of a man who'd waited 72 years to be underestimated. Every third night, he slipped down to the gate under cover of the pines. 1 quarter turn on the heavy wheel. Just enough. The lake rose a patient inch at a time, nothing the weather apps could blame on rain alone. He timed it with the forecast, a week of steady showers coming. Perfect cover. Victoria held her grand opening on a Saturday that dawned bright and smug. String lights twinkled over the new pavilion. Champagne flutes clinked. She gave a speech about elevating the community standard. Elias watched from his porch through binoculars, sipping the same coffee blend his grandfather drank. By dusk, the first puddles appeared along the new boardwalk. Guests laughed it off, cute lakeside charm. By midnight, the laughter stopped. Water lapped at the cabana steps. Pumps started whining. Victoria's voice carried across the water, sharp and shrill. "It's just runoff. Call maintenance." Elias turned the wheel another eighth. The lake answered. The storm that rolled in at 2 a.m. was the kind locals call the kind that remembers. By sunrise, the wellness pavilion looked more like a shipwreck. Cabana floors buckled. Private docks floated like driftwood. Guests waded out in designer pajamas while Victoria stood knee-deep in designer boots, phone glued to her ear, screaming at the insurance company. Elias walked down to the shoreline at first light, hands in his pockets, looking for all the world like a curious neighbor. "Morning, Victoria. Looks like Section 7.2 didn't cover Mother Nature." She spun on him, mascara streaking. "This is sabotage. I know it's you." He shrugged. "Sabotage? I'm just an old man who lost his bridge. Funny how the same lake you said was shared decided to share back." He pulled out his phone, the one that had recorded every word she'd said the morning they tore the bridge down, and hit play. Her own voice floated out. "Rules apply to everyone, Elias." Her face went the color of old concrete. Within 48 hours, the county inspectors showed up, tipped off by anonymous drone footage from a helpful neighbor. Turns out the pavilion's foundations violated every flood ordinance on the books. Insurance adjusters took one look at the elevation certificates and laughed. "Act of God? Ma'am, you built in a flood zone and ignored the original engineering drawings." Claim denied. Victoria resigned from the board the same week the bank started foreclosure proceedings on the half-sunken resort. Last anyone saw her, she was loading boxes into a moving van, heels caked in lake mud that wouldn't wash off. Elias sat on his porch the evening the last truck rolled out, new footbridge plans already drawn on the table beside him. The lake lay smooth again, reflecting the pines like nothing had happened. But the gap was gone. The community had voted, overwhelmingly, to restore the original easement and retire half the petty fines that had choked the neighborhood for years. The water had simply done what water does, find its level. True or false, the HOA president was simply enforcing rules for everyone's benefit, or was she the one who truly abused her power until the very lake she tried to control finally handed her the bill?